Mr. Kaur, why has India taken this action against Goa?
Because, as the Prime Minister said a few weeks ago, India's patience has been exhausted after trying for 14 long years since our independence to settle this problem peacefully.
Why didn't you take your case to the United Nations?
Well, in the United Nations, Portuguese colonialism in particular has been discussed for several years, but Portugal has refused to give any information or discuss this problem because she believes that all her colonies are extensions of Portugal, a legal fiction which the rest of the world does not accept. And then we did send a letter to the United Nations on the 15th of this month, and we also sent 3 protests to the Portuguese government. We even said we are prepared to negotiate on the basis that they would eventually withdraw from there, but they refused to discuss this. We opened our diplomatic mission in Lisbon in 1949 in the hope that we'd be able to settle this problem peacefully. But for 4 long years they tried, and we had to close it down because Portugal refused to discuss. And during the last few weeks, Portuguese reinforcements were increased. They were concentrated all along our border. They fired on our merchant ships, on our fishermen's craft. They intruded into our territory on several occasions. And the last straw was on December 17th in the morning, when about 300 Portuguese soldiers invaded right across up to 500 yards inside our territory. Then they were committing brutalities, atrocities inside Goa and across the border on our people. Surely no government could tolerate this.
But India has always been telling other countries, who told us at Suez, not to use force to settle disputes. Why are you now using force yourself?
We have never abjured the use of force as a last resort. We have always advocated the peaceful settlement of disputes as between civilized nations and governments. But you'll forgive me for saying that Portugal is living in medieval ages, and they do not understand our language nor your language, if I may say so. How were we able to settle this similar problem with the French government? Why were we not able to settle with Portugal? Because Portugal still lives in the Middle Ages. She will not see the writing on the wall and the changed atmosphere of the world today.
Now, Portugal has taken the case to the United Nations. If the United Nations order a withdrawal, will you agree?
It will depend on what the United Nations resolution is, but I do not see how the United Nations in the same breath can condemn colonialism for 2 successive years by almost a unanimous vote, and then take back what it has said in the same breath and ask us to withdraw. We are not there to conquer the territory because the territory is part of India. We are not there to dominate a foreign people because the people are our own kith and kin. We have gone there only to help them to liberate themselves.
But would you accept the United Nations verdict on this?
I do not think the United Nations would express such a verdict.
Now, there have been reports that the driving force in India behind this move was not Mr. Nehru, but the Defence Minister, Mr. Menon. Have you any comment on that?
I think this is a mischievous report. Neither Mr. Nehru nor Mr. Krishna Menon take such serious steps without consulting the government as a whole. And I can assure you that people of all political parties in India and every Indian citizen and every citizen of Goa is behind this action. If this action had not been taken, there would have been bloodshed and greater violence. It was the lesser of the 2 evils we had to choose. As Mahatma Gandhi said years ago, he said, violence is bad, but slavery is worse. I'm sure the British people would understand and appreciate that sentiment.
Over the years, the Indians have built up a middle position in the world as a conciliator. Has your government considered that by this attack on Goa, you will destroy that influence?
On the contrary, we feel that it will help other colonial territories to get freedom peacefully, because I think the powers that control those colonial territories will take a lesson from this. And I hope that the transfer of power in other colonial territories will be more peaceful. I'd like to ask you, if you had in this country a foreign government having an enclave with about 10,000 to 20,000 troops and were committing atrocities there, how would your people like it?
We are prepared to negotiate with the Indian Union in every way. If the Portuguese sovereignty is fully respected, we are prepared to negotiate with them in regard to any other problem, including any guarantee, any international guarantee if necessary, which might ensure the Indian Union that their sovereignty and their security would not be jeopardized. Because this might be important, since the Indian Union is crying very loudly that we are threatening the very existence of the Indian Union. Incidentally, it may be useful to remind you that the Indian Union has a population of 450 million people, whereas Portuguese territories are inhabited by 700,000 people. That, in fact, is a great threat.